Dave Anderson here with the Fisherman magazine. It's February 15th. These are your headlines. Connecticut's been busy stocking again this week, putting more salmon in. Also hearing about good largemouth fishing across pretty much the entire region over the weekend. And ice fishing for big pike continues where there's safe ice. Stay tuned for all that and more on this week's New England Fishing Forecast.
The fishing news is sponsored by these fine partners.
Before we begin, we've got a couple news items for you guys. The first one is about those salmon. As you may remember from last week, Connecticut has been sort of doing some housekeeping on or catching up on their list of stocking promises. Back in December, we started getting all that rain, and between pretty much Christmas and now, we've had 17 inches of precipitation, which made it impossible for them to stock. Was it safe? Things were too high, too dirty, too fast. And things finally came back down to an acceptable level over the last few weeks. So they did the Naugatuck last week, like we talked about. And then on Friday, they did the Shetucket River with 60 more fish. Now, it's a little different in the Shetucket because they stock at a whole bunch of different locations. So it wasn't like the Naugatuck where they did those two spots, you know what I mean? But if you watched last week's report, especially Rowan Lytle's little rundown on fishing for the Atlantic salmon, those fish spread out pretty quickly anyway, so it doesn't do you much good to go fish exactly where they put them in. And you're better off being mobile. In fact, I'd recommend going back and checking out his rundown of how to fish for Atlantic salmon. It was very informative, very succinct, and had a lot of good information in there. So check that out. But the salmon are now in the Shetucket, and these are the big ones. These are the 10 to 15 pound salmon. That's a season maker right there. So hopefully some of you guys are going to get out there. I've seen a few pictures of guys catching those fish over the last week or so, which is exciting. And hopefully some of you guys will get out there and catch them as well. The next thing is the giveaway, which is ongoing. This one's going to wrap up on April 24th. And I finally did decide what I'm going to give away. This is the plug here. I'll put a picture up on the screen as well. But I can bring that a little closer for you guys. This is a Connecticut Yankee dual action swimmer. And this is a copy that I made. It's not an original. But these were made in Meriden, Connecticut by a guy named Walter Christock back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And, whoever wins this, probably be one of the only guys throwing those things right now. So that's kind of cool. This one is in sort of a purple scale with some of the raw wood showing, which I think is kind of cool. Hopefully you guys will think that's cool too. Again, this is going to wrap up on the 24th. It doesn't matter what kind of fish you're catching. Doesn't matter if you catch it from shore, boat, or kayak. Doesn't matter if you caught it home or on vacation. All that matters is it shows you and your fish, and it was a recently caught fish. Send them to me at danderson@thefisherman.com or text them to the number on the screen. Just make sure you tell me that you want to be entered into the contest, and also the pertinent details. Just tell me your name. Tell me what kind of fish it is. Tell me where you got it. How you caught it, what you caught it on, things like that. And not only will we get you into the contest, but good chance we're going to get you in the magazine, and you may show up in the reports here as well. So get those in, and we'll see who wins.
For more than 20 years, anglers everywhere have come to know one thing, that nothing says no to fish bites.
Moving over to the reports now, we'll start things off with the freshwater synopsis. And this week, we're not going to talk so much about things that happened in specific places within the region. We're going to talk more about something that happened that made the fishing kick up. Actually, there are two different things. So last week, if you go back to last week's video, you see I'm all bundled up. It was freezing out, midweek last week. But by the weekend, we were up into the 50s, and I think a few places even touched the 60s away from the coast. That inspired a lot of people to get out fishing, but it also kicked the fish into gear. One species in particular that really fired up a largemouth bass. I heard from numerous anglers, especially fishing in the Cape region, out around Cape Cod, that were doing very, very well on jerk baits and some other finesse tactics like Ned rigs and things like that. But the jerk bait really seemed to be leading the charge. I didn't hear about any absolute monsters, but the bite was really good, like a lot of action. And the reason for that, well, sort of a twofold thing. First of all, we had a warm up. We also got rid of a lot of the clouds for a few days, which was allowing some of that sunlight to penetrate the water column. And in my experience, especially with largemouth bass in the wintertime, you get a day like that, you get a real bright sunny day with the sun penetrating the water, especially more toward midday or afternoon. The bite really often fires up. I think the sunlight gets through and just gets them in the feeding mood. You know what I mean? So that was one thing. Then we also had this snowstorm that came in on Tuesday. So we had a strong low pressure system approaching, which tends to have a really big impact on the fishing for especially freshwater species, but all species really. I got some photos from, Vincent Cerbara, I think his name is. Hopefully I didn't butcher the name. But he was telling me that he had been out fishing for sea frelons in Connecticut for several weeks and having no luck at all. And then finally we got these warmer days over the weekend. And we had this storm approaching. It was sort of a perfect scenario. And he said once the sun kind of got high in the sky and things started, the sun started to penetrate the water column, the bite turned right on and you get 3 sea frelons at Long Pond out in Connecticut. All beautiful fish. I got the pictures here. He caught them on a variety of things. He caught them on a paddle tail, he caught them on a Castmaster, and he caught them on like an orange and gold trout spoon. So the fish were aggressive. They were hitting multiple offerings, and it just goes to show, you can take advantage of things that you see coming in the forecast. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Also saw some photos of a couple guys that were fishing during the snowstorm. And they were doing it somewhere in Rhode Island. And they had some trout, they had some salmon. They also were probably soaked right through their clothes from the looks in the pictures here. But it goes to show again that we've had such stable weather for about 2 weeks straight up until that warm up and then the storm. And the fishing was kind of flatlining for a while there. And now, we had a little change. We had a little change in the pattern. We got some warmer weather. We got a big storm coming in, and lo and behold, the fishing lights up. So, the one thing I'm going to tell you guys, if you look in your, 14-day forecast on the Weather Channel app or whatever you use, and you see, 3 days where it's going to hit 50, or you see, hey, they're watching a potential winter storm next Thursday, or whatever it happens to be. These should be things that tell you this would be a good time for me to put in a little extra time. Maybe take a day off, maybe call in sick, and get out there and make it happen, because February is the toughest month of the year most of the time. It's also usually the coldest month of the year with the coldest water. So any little advantage you can give yourself is going to give you a better shot at catching fish, and it's also much more likely to get them to bite. Next up, let's check in quickly with Jenni Ackerman. She's doing her open boat series, and this one's all about some rod building that she's working on right now. Take it away, Jenni.
Hi everyone, welcome to this week's open boat. Today I wanted to show you guys something pretty special and cool. It's a little behind the scenes work for some winter projects that I do. So I don't know if you know this, but I build my own rods. I love building custom rods. It's a lot of fun, the science behind it and everything, guide alignments, math for figuring out where the guides are gonna go, and doing decorative wraps. I love doing closed decorative wraps, but I wanted to take the time to show you something specific I'm doing for this white rod right here. I call it the koi fish rod because I was gifted custom koi fish grips. So what I wanted to do, I was struggling to find a decorative wrap that would look nice in this back area, and I am doing marbling now to it. Marbling is a good beginner's decorative wrap for people just getting into rod building and they don't want to deep dive into closed decorative wraps like I did. So my marbling is a little bit different compared to how traditional marbling rod builders do it. Mine's more abstract. So what I did was basically I want to match the scale seen on the koi fish grips to match it onto that piece so it looks like one big koi fish. So I'm going to go through like just the quick steps of how to marble your rod. So to start, you can order your marbling kits on Mudhole, and they come with a ton of different colors and a very informative instruction sheet on how to marble. So to start, you take your epoxy, you mix per ratio for 2 minutes, and then you're going to spread that epoxy on the area of the rod blank where you are going to be marbling. Following that, you take the leftover epoxy, a couple nickel sizes of it and mix in that color pigment. Like I did orange for mine. Once that's been mixed, you move back to the rod that's spinning on the drying rack to keep that epoxy even. And if you were doing normal marbling, you would want to have that rod spinning the whole time. But for mine, I had to slow it down to blot down those little paint spots of the orange mix. And then you can do another coat of epoxy on top of that and put more on top. What's cool with regular marbling is like you can put as many colors down as you want and literally like take a toothpick and manipulate the paint and create these cool, interesting patterns. But it's really cool to showcase some little funky flares to your own custom rods. So definitely look into marbling, look into decorative wraps, and see what you can do to spice up your next custom build.
Moving over to the regional reports now. Saw some ice fishing reports coming down from Winnipesaukee, some down east Maine stuff, mostly for trout. Seems like the bite has been pretty solid there. Dropping down into Massachusetts, I was talking to Dan Southwick, who's been fishing way out west, and been mostly fishing for pike. And they had a good week this week. They had a 20-pounder, they had another nice fish, and then another guy had a 20-pound fish as well. So again, we had a little change in the weather pattern. Pike are very susceptible to these pressure changes, weather changes, and it kicked up that bite also. Heading back to the coast, let's check in now with James Jewkes.
Don't think I'm gonna get on this ice, that's for sure. That's awfully thin, and over in this other corner over here, we got complete open water. Whew. Looks like we might have had one weekend of ice up here. But just be careful, don't get on it. Don't do it. Heard of a guy in Maine lose his life over the weekend. Not very pleasant. Anyways, but the fishing has been good. If you can find the open water or take that long drive north. Seems like the pre-storm has been good. Guys have been catching fish. No striper report again this week, although I suspect there might be some out there that just won't share. Hooray for them. But we got another weekend coming, so let's get out and do it and find some safe stuff to fish. I'm sure they're gonna be biting. Weather's looking a little colder, so we'll see what happens with that. That's about it from here, Dave. Alrighty, have a good one.
Heading out of the North Shore region, I was talking to Rick over at Jerry's Bait and Tackle in Milford. I was asking him about how safe the ice was in the area. He said it's really not safe in central Mass. He said that he lives on a farm out in Mendon, and he has a couple of ponds on the property. And he said that they were safe to walk on last Thursday, and by Saturday they were open water. So it kind of shows you, first of all, how thin the ice really was, even though it was safe. And just, also the ice conditions can't have been great if it melted that quickly. We are coming into a colder week here, so we'll see if if some places harden up. But if you want to get on the ice, you got to head west, you got to head north. Otherwise, you're definitely taking your life in your hands. The open water fishing in central Mass has been decent. Heard about a big trout taken out of Hopkinton Reservoir. That fish was just under 5 pounds, if my memory serves. I think it was 412 or something like that. That's a good fish. That was a brown. And then getting more down toward the Cape, like Plymouth area, and getting out toward the canal, trout fishing continues there in all the same spots: Long Pond, Little Pond, Fearing Pond. Getting onto the Cape, you got Peters Pond, you got Hamblin Pond, you've got Sheep Pond, all through Nickerson State Park. All of those spots and any of the other ones you find on the stocking list are going to produce fish right now. I was talking to Ian from the Goose. He said that he fished ahead of the snowstorm and did very well, especially around dusk on jerk baits. He had a really nice brown trout. Fish was, I think it was like 22 inches or something like that, probably a 3-pound class fish, and many other good catches. Talked to a few guys who were bass fishing on the Cape. and they did well also with jerkbaits. Seems like a theme. Jerkbaits have been working very well. So the freshwater fishing has been good. There's also been a little bit of holdover activity in some of the creeks that kind of run to the ocean out on the Cape. I don't have too many details on exactly where that's going down. A lot of guys keep that pretty close to the vest, but if you're in the know, if you know a couple spots out there that hold some fish, it seems like the bite's been okay, and if we see a little warm up here, it's probably going to fire back up again. And as far as saltwater stuff goes, the only thing I've heard is the pollock fishing up toward the North Shore and even down East Maine. Probably should have talked about that at the beginning of Mass, but whatever. The bite has been insane. Many of these boats that are leaving, like Portsmouth, New Hampshire, probably Portland, Maine, Gloucester, they're all heading to the same areas, and the reports have just been silly. Hearing about guys with boats fully limiting out in less than 3 hours, and a lot of these fish are big. It's they're calling it old school pollock fishing, so that's kind of cool. Roy is working in the shop today, so he is not going to get us a report. So I'll have to check in with him next week, and that's what I have for you guys in Massachusetts. Moving over into Rhode Island, trout fishing has continued to produce good catches. Still seeing a lot of those Sebago salmon being landed also. Put these pictures up again of the guys that did it in the snowstorm the other day, which is kind of funny and kind of cool. The other thing that's been going on is this white perch bite, which has really been firing up. And for a little bit more on that, we've got a tandem report this week from TJ Kopecky and Jeff Sullivan. Take it away, guys.
Thanks, Dave. Hey, guys, it's nice to be back, but I got to tell you, I'm out here with Jeff Sullivan today, the perch master, and we get on some really nice fish. And Jeff's been sharing a lot of his secrets with me today and some of the tactics. And then I went over some of the tactics that I use fishing in some of these ponds. I'm the guy who's kind of like the 7-foot rod because, hey, I'm a 6'3" guy. I like a longer butt. I'm using a 3500 Penn Spin Fisher combo with just 10-pound test line and a 6-pound fluorocarbon leader. But hey, we had a good time this weekend fishing, and I got to tell you, the fishing, in the freshwater is still good if you can get where there's no skim ice. The upcoming week, Jeff, it looks like that we're going to get some snow.
Ice again.
And ice, because the water's going to cool off a little bit. But to get to my tip for this week, if you have those little silica packets that you get in your shoes, those work great when you put them inside of your fishing box to keep the moisture out, keep your hooks from getting rusty, everything. They work great. So if you have those and you buy shoes, save them, and you're a fisherman, put them inside your tackle box, especially if you store them over the winter. And you not use a box the whole winter, and you open it up in the springtime and everything's rusty. That's because moisture stayed in there. But clean up those hooks also. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to let Jeff talk about a little bit what we've been doing, and he's going to do his half of the video this week. So we're kind of collaborating. So go ahead, Jeff, take over.
Thanks, TJ. All right, so guys, as you can see that TJ and I went fishing this week and tried to figure out some new stuff. Tried new tactics, new tackle, stuff like that. We had warmer weather, so why not go out and try to do what you can do. So today, TJ did a little bit different than me with lure wise, but I went more finesse. He went more powerhouse, and so I got some of the Rapala BX minnow right there. That's a nice little perch bait for cold water. It's flat-sided. I get silver because we got to match the herring in here. So herring and mummy chugs, right?
Yeah, we've seen a couple of herring already.
So herring and mummy chugs. Some typical storm shads, pearl, olive over white, stuff like that. That works really well. And I mean, your tried and true Easy Shiner by Kitech. As you can see, these are bigger presentations. Perch will take these down without any hesitation at all. So I actually went through like 4 or 5 already today. The bite's been actually unbelievable.
They shoot them up.
Yeah, unbelievable today. So so we kind of did a little collaboration video. Did some perch fishing.
I think within 2 days we got about 100+ fish.
Oh, it's been insane.
It's just awesome fishery, and it's unlike any other around that we hear of.
Yeah.
We hear of Minnesota being the place to get your yellow perch.
Yeah.
But nobody talks about the big white perch fishery that we have around here.
You're absolutely, you nailed it on the head. I think we have the best white perch fishery in at least in the East Coast, I should say. Up for debate with the West Coast guys, the Midwest guys, but we got them. We got them all day. So, Yeah, it was a pleasure fishing with you today.
Great. Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, no
Appreciate
problem.
all your
Anytime.
time. And hey, guys, we'll catch up with you next week. And Jeff will probably be back in his shop, and I'll be back in my shop.
Yep.
So we'll catch you next week. Some tight lines.
Later, guys.
Also hearing about another little spike in holdover striped bass activity in the tributaries or backwaters of Rhode Island. I'm going to guess that it's going to cool off a little bit this week, but going into the weekend it had fired back up again. Saw some solid sized fish too, fish into the mid 30-inch class, which is a great fish any time of year, but especially in February. Not so much going on the head boats and whatnot. It seems like the bite's been really slow, and then we've had some stormy seas, so not too many guys getting out there. I haven't really heard many reports. Let's check in quickly now with Captain John Lee from JL Charters.
Hey guys, it's John Lee, JL Charters. It's February 13th, kind of late afternoon here. I'm on the pilot boat. We left Point Judith. We're running down to meet a tugboat toward Watch Hill. And there's not much going on out here. I've seen a couple of loons, and that's literally about it. Passing all this summer fluke bottom, Charlestown, Quaney, and there's not a fluke here. All the fluke are out in 70 fathoms. The sea bass are offshore. The stripers and bluefish are south of us. Nothing's here, and you know what? I'm okay with that. It's kind of nice getting a breather in the wintertime where you can actually get out on the water. I don't think about fishing out here. And it gives me a little pause, helps me recharge for the season coming up. I don't know how the guys do it in Florida. I wouldn't want to fish obsessively the year round, not at my age. I think you can do that when you're younger, but once you're in your 40s and 50s, it's nice getting breaks. Anyway, nice day out here, kind of a northerly breeze. I'll talk to you next time. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Moving over into Connecticut now, there's 3 fisheries that are inspiring, the most activity among anglers in Connecticut right now. You got the sea farallons, you got the Atlantic salmon, and if you got holdover striped bass. Sea farallon stocking, I think, is wrapped up, but don't quote me on that. They might do a little bit more. But I know that over these last few weeks, they put in a lot of the biggest fish. You can check out the Deep website to find out where they were put in. But the bite seems to be starting up. We had a couple fish reported last week. Now we got a couple more fish reported this week. And, it seems like things, these fish are settling in maybe. I don't know. But the bite is picking up. And that's good news if you want to catch one of those. They definitely look like a fun fish to catch one of these days. I got to get out there and try that. And then the Naugatuck and the Shetucket have been recently stocked with salmon, and it's the big ones, 10 to 15 pounds. We've seen a few decent fish reported, which is great to see, and it should only inspire more guys to get out there. From what I've heard, flows are pretty reasonable right now, which makes the fishing easier and safer and more fun. So you definitely want to check that out. And then, of course, holdover striped bass fishing in the Connecticut River and in the Housatonic River are producing fish right now. And we'll hear more about the Hoosie from Max. But going up the Connecticut River, not a lot of guys from what I've been talking about, from the people I've been talking to, have been taking advantage of the open water coves. I think a lot of guys are hoping they're going to freeze up this week. We'll see if that happens. But I have talked to a few guys that have done it, and there are fish to be caught. There's a lot of panfish out there right now. There's pickerel. You got an opportunity to catch pike. You got an opportunity to find some striped bass. So don't neglect the Connecticut River, even if it's not frozen over. It can be a great place to fish. For a little bit more on what's going on in central Connecticut, we'll toss it over now to Captain Mike Roy from Real Cast Charters.
For this week, I hear there's some pretty good ice fishing up north. But for me, I'm focused on getting ready for April 8th. That's the start of our season when we start fishing for stripers in the rivers. We're primarily fishing soft plastics those first few weeks in April. And then by May, we'll switch over to going out into the Sound, catching the stripers as they first migrate in. That could be a lot of fun if you hit it on a good day. And also, last year we had a great weak fish run, so I plan on doing some weak fish trips. We'll also be targeting stripers, bluefish, and porgies as well. That should be the first few weeks of May. Right now, I'm working on the Pathfinder. I'm going to rewire some stuff. So I went on line and ordered this new switch panel from New Wire Marine. This came out really nice with all the jumpers in the back. And I'm going to mount this in the Pathfinder, rewire a few things. I'm also adding a horn. Reason why is most center consoles don't come with them. You can pick up a horn. This is stainless steel. This will mount right on your gunnel cap, so you don't even know it's there. It's inexpensive and easy to mount. And what I like about having that on my boat is that if I'm out in the fog and I see a vessel either on my radar or I can hear them close to me, I can go ahead and use that fog signal. It's right on my dash, ready to go. So pretty easy and inexpensive addition for just one extra piece of safety. That's all I have for you this week. Good luck.
And now let's check in quickly with Rowan Lytle.
Finally have some snow in Connecticut, looking like a winter wonderland at my house. And that means, although we're going to have somewhat mild conditions through the weekend, that you can expect most waters to be on the cold side because there's going to just be snow melt going into it. So that will impact just about all the fishing. It will slow down everything's metabolism, and I don't expect tremendously good fishing through the weekend. That said, if you get out and fish, I would recommend targeting trout. Any of the Connecticut River tributaries, TMAs and such should still be fishing reasonably well. You know, most of the fish are pretty spread out by this point, but you can still pick a few off. Nymphing and streamers are going to be the recommended methods of the fly rod. I would target slower moving baits like soft plastics on jigs, or just use live or dead bait if you are fishing conventional tackle. But that's about it. Kind of nice to have snow, honestly, and in the long run, this should be good for a lot of things in terms of fishing. So, if you want to get out there and enjoy the winter wonderland, I recommend doing so. It certainly is beautiful out there.
And to wrap things up in central Connecticut, let's toss it over now to Matt Stone from Black Hall Outfitters.
What's up, everyone? Matt here at Black Hall Outfitters in Westbrook with this week's fishing report. Deep winter, got a bunch of snow recently, so slow, deep jerk baits for freshwater stuff. Definitely some piles of crappie out deep. You can find those guys chewing kind of all winter long. Small spoons and things of that nature to pull those guys up. Holdovers, same spots, you know, kind of same deal. Soft plastics, low, slow. This is, you know, again, kind of the time of year where 90% of the fish are in 10% of the water, so you're going to want to, especially for those holdovers, probably find them, see if they're biting, move on to another pile if you can't get them to chew, that kind of thing. Trout stocking, a lot of it has been completed, including a lot of those sea frail and brown trout, which are fun to target. You can find information on the DEP website about where those guys got dumped into. Beyond that, we wait for warmer days and this snow to melt. Good luck, everyone.
And now heading out west, you know, most of the activity that I'm seeing from out there is either some guys fishing trout in the rivers or the Housatonic. And for better details and all that, let's toss it over now to Max Finch from Fisherman's World.
This past week we had some nice weather leading up to the recent storm. We've seen some nice fish caught in the Housatonic, mostly at night this week. We didn't have a lot of heavy rain, so the bite, you know, picked up during the night. Usually when the water's really muddy, the day bite's really good. And then our local rivers like the Norwalk River, the Mill River, they've been fishing well. You know, I've seen guys get really nice browns, some really nice rainbows, and then other anglers are traveling up to like Squan's Pond to try to get on some walleye. And then the Farmington River is also fishing well. The herring bite locally has been so-so. It hasn't been great, you know, this whole season. It's very spotty, but there are herring out there to be had. To our west, you know, I still hear the bite's pretty good. Guys going from, you know, Stamford Harbor, Greenwich Harbor area. And then the Norwalk River has them. I saw some loons come up with them, so there's a sign. I know some, you know, people fishing here and there. They're getting like, you know, 5, 6 some days, you know, dozen another day. There's no consistency, though. You really got to bounce around. Thanks and good luck.
And that's what happened for you guys in the reports this week. Hopefully it's going to inspire you to get out there. There's a lot going on, especially if we get a weather system like we talked about in the intro there. It's definitely worth checking out. So hopefully you guys will get out there. If you're not a subscriber to The Fisherman, I highly recommend you head over to our website. That's thefisherman.com. You get a full taste of what we offer. We cover all of the fishing: freshwater, saltwater, offshore, inshore, boat, kayak, paddleboard, surf. It's all covered. We cover all of the fishing from Delaware up to Maine. We do a lot of travel stuff that reaches outside the region as well. We have fishing reports. We have videos online, of course. We do a lot, and it's the best $30 you can spend at fishing. $29.95 for the year. If you sign up at a show, you get some free gifts for that. But if you're not convinced after looking at the website, at the very least, give us a like and subscribe here on YouTube, and hit that little bell thing down there so you get a notification every time we post something new. Appreciate you guys for watching, and we'll see you next week.